Hi, Pierre. Mike here. Hopefully, I'm not disturbing you on a busy campaign day. I come to you as a struggling Canadian, someone who has been born and raised in Canada and has lived here for almost 30 years. I've been thinking long and hard about this, and I have a few ideas on things that, when you're elected Prime Minister, I need you to do. Before I get into that, let me give you a little bit of backstory on who I am in the interest of transparency. I was born in North Bay, Ontario, back in, 1996. I'm 29. Back in 2021, in the height of the pandemic, or as I like to call it, the scamdemic, I moved to Alberta in the interest of freedom and having more opportunity since Ontario was shut down. Unfortunately, a lot of those same measures ended up following when I came out here, and there was still a few shutdowns, which ultimately put me back in my own head. And things haven't necessarily gotten better over the last few years. And I think there's a lot of Canadians probably in the same boat who probably feel the same way. And there's, like I said, some ideas that I believe would put us all in a better position here. And I've made a list. I hope you'll take the time to hear me out, unlike the previous Prime Minister who didn't want to hear ideas from my side of the aisle. So I rent in Edmonton right now with my wife, and rental costs are getting out of control. So I need you to put a cap on rent and have rent control across the board, not just in Alberta, but across Canada, because the issue is not just a provincial issue, it's a federal issue. At some point, I'd also like to buy a home so I don't have to keep renting, and so I can put my money towards something that I actually own and have a little bit more security in where I live. Therefore, I would also like you to remove the red tape on buying a home for Canadians and making it more affordable for us, and potentially making it more difficult for the immigrants that come in, because it's not exactly fair right now. A big one for me, as someone who was part of the protests for freedom. I was not in Ottawa for the freedom convoy there, but I was down at the border at Coots here in Alberta. But I know that a couple of prominent figures in this country, Chris Barber and Tamara Litch, were arrested on fabricated charges of mischief and have recently been convicted. I would like you to step in and overturn those convictions, because we both know that was a political witch hunt. It seems like in this country, doing something like that sets a bad precedent, that you can be arrested and looked at as a criminal simply for wanting freedom and wanting a government that upholds the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So it's just something that we need better policy on and a new perspective. We need to bring accountability into Parliament and arrest all MPs and government employees across the board that have broken the law, but have used their position of power to get away with their crimes. They're not above the law here, and it needs to be the same for everybody. As much as they might be government employees or MPs, they're still Canadians first. They're still just Canadian citizens like the rest of us. We need to lower the cost of fuel permanently. And the way we do that is to construct pipelines that flow freely across Canada using Canadian domestic oil. We have tons of it in Alberta, especially, that has been sitting underneath the ground for, over a decade at this point, because we've decided to import dirty oil instead of using our own clean oil. I think you know this as well as I do. Something that, this one's not just for you, Pierre, it's for all of our federal leaders and even provincial leaders. We need to be listening to Donald Trump, the president across the border, mainly for the reason that more tariffs are going to hurt Canada, and that America's our largest trading partner, and we share a border with them. They're our closest ally. We shouldn't be at war with them. We should be uniting with them and focusing on our two countries being the greatest in the world. It's just my perspective. We need to secure our borders and shut down immigration just for 5 years until we get a hold on our own population, get a hold on all the problems we're facing, whether it's homeless, drugs, all of it. We just need to get control of things here first before we can look at allowing more people into this country the legal way. I think I'm just looking out for the best interest of Canadians here, and not just myself either. We need to clean up the drugs off the street to counter off that last point. And we need to start in BC because Vancouver is a beautiful city, and unfortunately, because of the drug problem right now, it's turning into a dumpster. And I don't think it's the only city that's facing that problem. I see it here in Edmonton too. I've seen it downtown, close to Rogers Place, where the Edmonton Oilers play. They were in the Stanley Cup final last year, and there are a lot of people that came to watch, and they had to see that. It's not a good look for Alberta. It's not a good look for Edmonton. It's not a good look for Canada. And we had lots of tourists, especially here with West Edmonton Mall as well. There's a lot of tourists that come, and they don't need to see those problems. We need to be promoting cleanliness and the fact that we care about people and get rid of the illegal drugs off the streets. We need to restore the lyrics of our national anthem back to "In All Thy Sons' Command." It honors our history, and I believe the previous Prime Minister changing that whole charade was misguided. I get what he was trying to do, but it didn't work, and it was wrong. We need to honor our history and our forefathers who founded this country way back when. Fun fact for you, Pierre, too. One of my best friends who also lives here in Edmonton, his great uncle way back was Sir John A. Macdonald, the founding father of our country. So there's a little bit of bloodline in it for someone close to me as well. We need to work with the premiers of each province, or you need to work with the premiers of each province to ensure that each province has a certain level of sovereignty so there's not government overreach coming from Ottawa. Each province needs the ability to make a few more decisions for itself that the federal government doesn't need to have a hand in. I know you might see things potentially a bit different than that, but I've lived in 2 provinces, and I just believe that's how it needs to happen going forward. Finally, and this is the last point I could think of over the last week or two, we need to work closely with our American counterparts and remove the red tape around Canadians living and working in the United States. Given the fact that we share a border, they're our largest ally and trading partner, we shouldn't require a visa, any type of visa, to work in the United States. We should be able to honor the fact that having either Americans in Canada or Canadians in the US working on both sides is just in the best interest of both of our economies, especially in the idea of working together to build stronger nations, stronger countries, and to be the best in the world. Because sometimes there are Americans who have better skill sets or more skill sets than some Canadians, and sometimes there's Canadians who have more skill sets or offer more to an economy than Americans do across the border, and I think we just need to accept that fact. It works both ways. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you for taking the time to hear me out. I hope to see you taking office in a few weeks.